When I look back at my family dinners a few years ago, I can see it so clearly now. The table wasn't just filled with food, it was filled with glowing screens. My brother scrolling endlessly, my parents half listening while replying to messages, and me pretending to check something quickly but really lost in notifications. It felt normal at the time. Everyone does it, right? Phones are just part of life. But slowly, something started to bother me. We were sitting in the same room, yet it felt like we were miles apart. Conversations became shorter, eye contact became rare, and laughter felt different. It wasn't the same warm, connected feeling I remembered as a kid. That's when I realized something powerful: technology isn't the enemy, but the lack of boundaries around it is. Without clear limits, devices sneak into the most important spaces: dinner tables, living rooms, even bedtime routines. And when that happens, family bonds quietly weaken. The truth is, most families don't argue because of tech itself. They argue because one person feels ignored, another feels distracted, and everyone feels a little less heard. And the root of it all? No boundaries. So today, I want to share what I learned about setting tech boundaries for families. Not strict rules that make everyone miserable, but practical limits that actually make relationships stronger. Because once you put boundaries in place, something amazing happens: conversations come back to life, time feels more meaningful, and you realize how much you were missing before. The first thing I had to accept was that boundaries don't start with the phone. They start with people. I couldn't just announce, "Okay, no phones at dinner," and expect everyone to cheer. That would have felt like control, not connection. So instead, I started with honesty. One evening, I said something simple: "I miss how dinners used to feel. I want us to have more real conversations again. No blaming, no pointing fingers, just how I felt." And surprisingly, everyone understood. My parents admitted they noticed it too. My brother rolled his eyes at first, but even he admitted that meals felt a little quiet lately. That conversation opened the door. And that's where the first boundary came in: no phones at the dinner table. We agreed to keep them in another room for just that 1 hour. At first, it felt weird. The silence was almost louder than usual because we weren't filling it with scrolling. But slowly, the silence turned into talking, and the talking turned into laughing. The second boundary came later, and it wasn't about rules, it was about replacing habits. We all realized that in the evenings, we drift into separate corners with our own screens. Instead of forcing everyone to just put the phone away, we picked something to do together: board games, a short walk, or even just watching a movie without anyone texting during it. The funny part? The more intentional our time became, the less we actually missed our phones. It was like rediscovering something we didn't even know we had lost. But here's the thing about boundaries: they only work if everyone feels included. If one person is forced into it, they'll secretly rebel, and the tension will be worse than before. So we tried something different. Instead of setting rules, we set agreements. For example, my mom wanted mornings to be calmer. She said she didn't like starting the day with everyone's faces buried in notifications. So we made a deal: no phones for the first 30 minutes after waking up. Instead, we'd talk while having breakfast or just ease into the day without screens. At first, it was hard, especially for me. I used to check my phone before I even left my bed. But after a week, I noticed my mornings felt lighter, like my brain wasn't being attacked by 1,000 thoughts before I even brushed my teeth. Another agreement was about bedtime. My little sister struggled with falling asleep because she'd scroll for 5 minutes that turned into an hour. So we all started charging our phones outside the bedroom. It wasn't easy, but once we tried it, we slept better, and waking up didn't feel like dragging ourselves out of a screen coma. That's when it hit me: setting boundaries with technology wasn't about losing freedom. It was about getting freedom back. Of course, it wasn't perfect. There were slip-ups. My dad would sneak his phone back into the room some nights, or I'd accidentally bring mine to the dinner table because I was waiting for a message. But instead of shaming each other, we laughed about it and reminded ourselves why we started in the first place. That made the difference. Boundaries that come from guilt or punishment never stick. But boundaries built on shared goals, like having more meaningful family time, actually feel motivating. We even noticed small but powerful shifts. Dinner conversations became longer. My sister actually looked up from her plate and shared stories from school. My parents seemed less stressed because they weren't constantly juggling work emails at home. And I realized how much I'd been missing by scrolling through my phone instead of actually being present. Technology didn't disappear from our lives. It was still there for work, fun, and connection. But now, it felt like we were in charge of it, instead of it being in charge of us. Looking back, the biggest lesson wasn't about cutting technology out, it was about reclaiming control. When we finally put boundaries in place, technology stopped feeling like an enemy and started feeling like a tool again. And that's what I want you to take away. Boundaries don't mean restriction, they mean freedom. Freedom to sit at the table and laugh with your family without checking your phone every 2 minutes. Freedom to sleep deeply without the glow of notifications waking you up. Freedom to live moments fully instead of half experiencing them through a screen. If you've ever felt like technology is stealing time from the people who matter most, try starting small. 1 rule. 1 habit. 1 conversation. You'll be surprised how quickly those little changes can transform your family's connection. At the end of the day, the goal isn't to eliminate technology, it's to create a home where people come first, and screens come second. And trust me, once you feel that shift, you'll never want to go back.